live comments are there.
Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to the inaugural broadcast of Coffee and Conversations from the Intimacy of Race. So I am your host, Eva Medilek, and I'm really excited about this series that we're starting. I'm really looking to showcase how our allies are making impact and change at home, at work, and in their communities. The conversations that we have been having have been deep, intimate, challenging, scary, bringing up a lot of things that are bringing up a lot of emotion. I mean, this is really emotionally charged subjects. And so my first guest this morning, Candy Barone, I've been following her. We've been friends for a long time, but I've been following her on Facebook and really seeing how she is showing up powerfully in her allyship. And the last time we chatted, she shared with me how she's really bringing this work into her business, which is a challenge for a lot of us out there. Are we going to lose clients? Are we going to lose family? What are our friends going to think when we take such a strong stand for having Black Lives Matter? So I'm just going to read Candy's bio to you. Now, Candy's the CEO of You Empowered Strong, and she's a leadership development expert, trainer, executive coach, as well as an international speaker and Amazon best-selling author. She is a catalyst and change agent who works with executives and emerging leaders to help bring heart back to leadership while feeding the soul of their business. With nearly 20 years in corporate, combined with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, certification as a Six Sigma Black Belt, an MBA, she is a master at building exceptional, high-performing teams, maximizing and leveraging ROI, growing emerging leaders, which we all are right now, and creating metrics for greater accountability and catapulting individuals to achieve explosive growth. So welcome, Candy. So happy to have you.
Oh, Eva, I am so honored and delighted to be here. Thank you for having me be your first guest. And I am just, wow, so moved and just humbled to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I've got my coffee for our Coffee and Conversations.
I have water. I've already had quite a bit of coffee.
Yeah, I know you're in a different time zone, but it's interesting. I've just discovered oat milk, which I like to call oatmeal milk. And it is so delicious as a latte. It's like my great new discovery right now. So I want to start out by asking you, before the George Floyd incident, and the explosion that happened in all our communities because of it, as a result of that being literally the straw that broke the camel's back, what did your allyship look like?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, to be very honest, I moved in and out of my allyship. I had periods of my career, of my life, where I was a very strong voice. I can remember even as far back as being 16 at my grandfather's funeral, and my family, who, culturally are Italian, started getting into a very racist conversation. And I remember standing up, being very clear I needed to inject my thoughts into the conversation and shut it down. And my mom at the time was very clear it was not the right space. And so my grandparents lived on like a 3/4 mile block, and she's like, go take a walk. And I'm like, I need to say something now. She's like, Candy, go take a walk. And I came back in and I was still fired up. And she's like, take another walk. I probably walked around that block 8 times. And by the time I came in going, she's like, are you done? And I'm like, I don't understand. She goes, it's not the place. So that was a space where I started to get shut down in that space. Then during my corporate career, I did work for violence prevention with inner city schools. So I worked exclusively in that capacity, built some programs to help with some of the busing of inner city kids into. And so there are aspects of my career where I was very involved in D&I initiatives. I was involved in how to get programs to bring more education so kids knew there was opportunities. And like I said, to be very honest, I went in and out because there were spaces where I said, that's really not mine. I have other things I'm focused on. There's other people doing that work in those spaces. I will support it where I can, but my initiative is this.
Mm-hmm. How old were you at your grandfather's funeral? I'm curious.
16. I was just turned 16.
Mm-hmm.
And
we felt very passionate about what was being said in the home at that time.
Absolutely. And I would say that started even earlier on. I was very, very clear from the beginning of me coming into this world. There was a hardwiring for me on anything that felt like it was injustice. So anywhere where I felt people were being bullied, I tended to voice my opinion. I did that in elementary school. I did that in school. And so that conversation to me was a bullying conversation. Even though there were no Black people in the room, it was one that triggered that notion of, I need to do something. This doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm. So what was going on in your corporate career at that time? What did you see? What did you feel? What was going on as far as D&I in the corporate career?
Yeah, it's interesting because I will say, I mean, I'm very clear I have white privilege. I'm very clear I'm a single white female in the US. And so the only lens I can put on to, even at the most micro, like just very beginning of understanding, is to say, to be a female in a male dominated field and the discrimination that I received in that capacity is about the only lens I can put on that says I get a glimmer of how much of the suffering has been when I look at some of my brothers and sisters and what they've gone through, especially in the business environments. And I can remember my very first job out of college. My first job out of college took me to Cleveland, Ohio, which is a very racially charged city, has a lot of segregation, a lot of discrimination. Felt it the minute I got into the city. I was the only female in my office that had a degree. And at the time, there was a lot of just struggles. Halfway through my time there, they brought in a Black female engineer. And I can remember the two of us, we were 23 years old, spending every lunch hour in the bathroom crying with each other because of how difficult they were making it. And more so for her, being that she was a Black female in our environment. We were both engineers. We both had degrees. And we spent every lunch hour crying because of the disparity and the discrimination and the blatant things that were being done to set us up with each other. Because of how difficult they were making it. And more so for her, being that she was a Black female in our environment. We were both engineers. We both had degrees. And we spent every lunch. That was weird. Echo playback.
Yeah. No, I tried to do something really weird on here to get a watch party started, and then I realized I shouldn't be doing that on my computer. I should be doing it on my phone. So it should be better now.
Perfect. I was gonna say, that was so weird.
Yeah, a weird sound came up, and then the dog started barking. So don't you love live TV?
Yeah, right? I'm just like, delivery guy comes, mine's going off too, so it's fine.
So when this incident with George Floyd happened, what shift, feeling, emotion, passion, whatever you want to call it, what happened to you personally?
I can remember the night before it happened, I went to bed with something my coach says to me, which is, I declare this day complete, higher powers take control, show me. And I was very clear something was starting to move energetically that I was supposed to move into. I've been feeling it. And I woke up and I remember seeing the initial clip and I'm like, because again, going in and out of allyship, I was like, I can't watch this. I can't watch things that on a cellular level. I know these videos are violent. I have chosen many times not to watch them because I just can do nothing but cry. Yeah. And there was a voice or something, there was just an energy that said, you need to watch this. And I will never forget the moment of watching it because it was as if a switch was activated. There was nothing. There was no choice. There was no, and it's actually going to make me cry because I remember posting something immediately and actually having a friend saying, wow, you wasted no time to voice I'm like, this is a not issue in terms of choice. This is so profoundly, and again, so profoundly unacceptable. And it was this switch that just said, I no longer can play nice. I don't care who gets pissed off, because my social media platform has been more about positivity and lifting energy and wanting to be a voice for change and for inspiration and for leadership. And it became very clear in that moment, this is a leadership conversation. And I'm going to finally step into my voice, because I've been playing small in a lot of capacities. And it was very, very, very clear to me. There was absolutely no other option but to speak my truth. And the words just poured
out.
And I was very clear. And then from there, I will say, since that moment, in fact, I need to remind myself sometimes to slow it down, to sleep. I cannot be in this 24/7. I have been fully activated in a way I can't explain. It just, there's a deep knowing that says, this is why I've had the voice I've had and the platform I created, because this is where I need to move everything moving forward. And so everything has shifted because of that moment.
So, I see you and I hear you with the emotion and the pain and the feelings that came up in watching that video, as I had a similar experience. It was so deep in my belly that I don't want to say it surprised me, but I had no idea that range of emotion was in me watching that. And I think for me, I felt just generations of grief, PTSD, pain, hurt, all of it, all of the feels. And I just spent 2 days crying. But then on the third day, I was like, I just can't go back to business as usual.
Right.
Yeah, it's just like, but then what? What's next? How do I use my voice? How do I become an agent for change? How do I become an influence in this space so that transformation and change can keep up that momentum and be sustainable? And so for you, as a white woman wanting to enter this space and bring a voice in your world, what challenges, I guess is the right word I'm looking for, have you been faced by expressing your passion? Have you been by expressing your passion and the shift that you're making in your life and your business?
First and foremost, I've lost clients. I literally within a couple of days had someone pull out of a program of mine. I have had a lot of turnover in my community and a deep network of what I would have called friends who have been very clear to shine a light. I'm very open to opposing perspectives and opinions. What I'm not open to is people that use my platform to be a coward, to spew their hate and to target and to say racially profiling and just damaging. I've been very clear. So I've done a lot of unfriending and blocking and unfollowing, and have had a lot of people send me private messages, which have been just very inflammatory, very charged. Many of them I've just deleted because a lot of them don't even have any context. It's sending me a video that's supposedly supposed to put me in my place. Or I have a couple current clients right now where I'm having very difficult conversations moving our work forward. They're very resistant to this being the topic to lean into. And so there's a lot of challenges as I have spent a lot of time over the past month clearing some things out, resetting and restructuring some things to the point where, like you said, I've spent a lot of days crying. It's a lot of people's energy I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot, not just my own grieving, not my own ancestral grieving, not grieving for my entire, I'm very fortunate that I have a very rich Black community that I've tapped into, that are friends of mine, that I grew up in that capacity, and yet still grieving for all of them and having these conversations with people one-on-one to make sure they're okay and to lean into that conversation and to listen. It's taken me a month to figure out how then I get to be that voice, and only as of 2 days, not even 2 days ago, I started a community to engage in this conversation because I knew I was being activated to do something. I just didn't want to do something too soon that wasn't the right space, that I hadn't done some of the processing and the grieving and so that I could, to your point, be deliberate and sustainable in how this is a long game.
Yeah.
This has forever changed how my business model is structured, how I choose to lead, how I train and coach and speak. And there is no going back. Everything has shifted. And I will say there's a lot of clearing out that needs to be done because there's many that don't want to be along for the ride. The beautiful thing has been in that clearing out there, and I get really, even watching the community I've built grow. My dog's gonna go. There's a knock at the door. This is what happens. You got your dog going here.
And that's a little big bark you got going on there.
He's tiny but mighty like his mama. He's little with a big bark. Peyton, it's good. It's okay, buddy. No.
Mighty.
Anyway, it's that space for everybody I've cleared out. And I was just this morning, I mean, in a day and a half, my community's already built to almost 300 people. And I'm just so overflowing with how many people want to be in this conversation. And so I can focus on all what's moving out and what feels like I'm losing in my business. Or I can have extreme gratitude to say, thank you for choosing not to be here if you're not ready to make space for those who are.
Yeah. What fears did you have about what the challenges and consequences would be by using your voice so powerfully? Because I know there's a lot of people in this group, the Intimacy of Race, and even from the surveys that I received back from the forum that I did, the Allyship Awareness Forum, where there was a lot of, I got to put my glasses on for this, sorry. The challenges, making mistakes, being judged, the level of commitment, communication, how to have these conversations, and especially for business owners and people who have work-life balance. What did you, I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision, but it wasn't, because of the fact that you could lose clients. There's a deep financial impact to using your voice this way. There is friendships, relationships are changed. So much comes up, family. What was the main fear, like when you say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to commit, and I'm going to be in it for the long haul? What came up for you?
There are two things specifically. One is that, and I've been actually talking about this a lot lately because I've been feeling this nudge. I do a fair job of being professionally vulnerable. I do not do a good job of being personally vulnerable. And so there was a big fear that in order for me to speak up, I was going to have to be personally vulnerable, which that in itself is scary. The bigger fear for me, and a lot of people probably wouldn't, it had nothing to do with what was going to happen in my business. It had nothing to do with my friends. It had to do with, I was so afraid that by speaking up, I was going to inadvertently hurt my Black community. I was everything. I have been, even in my group, the initial people that I invited in, I'm like, oh my God, are they going to think what? Oh my God, I don't want them. I literally had an entire dialogue around my Black community. And what was been so beautiful is they so want to be in that conversation as well. And I was so afraid and still there are things I'm like, I will read something 20 times just to say, am I using the right voice? Because the last thing I want to do is create any adverse racism or create any other triggers. And, after reading things like White Fragility and other resources, that having a better understanding of things I wasn't even aware of, my biggest fear is doing something that would inadvertently, unconsciously put more suffering or pain on this community in any way, shape, or form. And so that for me was the biggest risk of all. What if my voice? What if I say something wrong? What if I hurt people? Now, people that are sitting in white privilege, I don't care about. I mean, I care, but I don't care. you know what? Money is money. Clients are client. I'm not even worried about that. I know how to redirect things, and I also trust the unit. That has never even been a concern of mine. It has truly been, I don't want to do something damaging unconsciously, selfishly, superficially, inadvertently to put any more suffering in that community.
What did you do to prepare yourself to do the inner work, to educate yourself? Hang on.
You should have made me keep balling the whole time. That's fine. I'm just like a hot mess today.
Go for it, girl. Go for it. I can't be personally vulnerable. Yeah, okay. Yes. I was like, one of my kids used to say, whatever, say
right.
Oprah. But no, I really appreciate you sharing that fear, because that real fear has caused a lot of the white community to be silent. And silence equals violence right now. And so one of the reasons why I created the Intimacy of Race is to have a safe space to make your mistakes and be coached through them so that you can show up more powerfully in your own families and your own communities. However, it does come with a certain amount of inner work. It does come with asking yourself powerful questions about, not being individualized in, well, I'm not prejudiced, I'm not a racist, and that whole conversation, but where have I benefited from white privilege? How has racism benefited me as a white person? And coming to grips with that, doing the inner work, how to have these conversations. I mean, my zone of genius is really relationships, intimacy, conversation as it relates to being a high performer and a leader in your community. Because in order to get people to know, like, trust, follow you, change their way of thinking, their patterns, their habits, their beliefs, you've got to show up powerfully and have had done the work yourself to educate yourself, to find where your blind spots are, and to be okay making mistakes. Because just as in life, in this conversation, the fear of making mistakes holds us back from even trying. And so, like Michael Jordan said, you'll miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So you're not taking a shot because you don't want to miss it. So you've actually done nothing. So what did you do personally to prepare yourself to be a powerful allied voice in the community?
I did 3 things. I first and foremost reached out to my Black community in 2 capacities. One, because I really, really, truly wanted to make sure they were okay. And I wanted to make sure if they needed a place to cry, then anything that I could be a resource for them. And so I reached out individually to a lot of my brothers and sisters. I reached out and had one-on-one conversations. I reached out to say, help me know where to find the resources. And then, so that was in both the capacity to check in them and also, where do I go? Where do I go to get educated? I don't need you to educate me, because I know that is not what we should be putting on our Black community. I just wanted them to say, where do you direct me? And so several of them, I started just seeking out information, reached out to friends of mine I know do very deliberate work in allyship and D&I and are doing, so I knew that where they could show me resources. So then what they showed me, I dug into. And every piece that they gave me, I then put back out into social media to, one, demonstrate that, thank you, I'm honoring the fact that you shared this resource with me, and now I want to put it out there to activate it and have conversation. So that was one piece of it. 2, I just started to dig into every resource that was available, whether it was, Between the World and Me, or White Fragility, or How to Be Anti-Racist, and looking at the books and the podcasts and the things that are available, and then started watching a lot of documentaries. I watched 13th, I watched I Am Not Your Negro, I watched Brian Banks, I watched these stories. And I started to go back over years of videos and content that have been posted around deaths that have been taken, especially in the hands of police brutality. And I started to tell myself it was time to watch the videos that I've been dismissing and that were uncomfortable. And I, over the last month, every free moment I've had has been consumed digesting something. And not only digesting it, but digesting it and then really taking ownership, really understanding what that has meant for me and being very clear to put that out as my voice to say, this is why you need to pay attention to this. This is why I think this is relevant. This, as a white whoever, I think you need to be really mindful. Here's the things so that I could start to create awareness, start to educate, and start to open up the conversation. The group I've created has become a result of people then going, Candy, how do I do more? Where do I start? And it's like, we need to come to it, just like you said, creating a safe space where people can falter and ask questions, and it can get messy. And it took me I am just voraciously consuming and grabbing and digesting everything I can to start to bring it into a cellular space where I can start to really understand the gravity of what's been going on systemically for 400 years, where it's coming from, what's still in full force right now, because the only way I can be a voice is, and it is a constant everyday. If I'm not engaged in conversation, I'm engaged in research and information and conversations with people to teach me and to listen. And I'm doing a lot of listening right now.
Yeah, well, that's the key right there. You've got to listen to learn. And you know, my experience has been that in these conversations, there's so many people are individualizing it that they're not listening to learn. They're listening to respond. They're listening to defend. And they're doing the yeah, buts. Yeah, but I was raised not to see color. Yeah, but my family didn't raise me that way. Yeah, but I'm not a racist. Yeah, but I have a Black friend. Yeah, but, and so, and it really is a time to just, you know, as I share a lot, you're in your infancy in this. And so it's time to just, you know, be on breast milk for a while before we even start introducing formula. And solid listen to the pain, because we haven't been heard in so long. And now it's a beautiful space to listen and take in and reflect and see where your own habits, patterns, belief, and behaviors were formed, so that you can be conscious of where white privilege and white fragility have benefited you, have shown up in your life in some of the things you say and do that are a blind spot to you, not realizing it's a microaggression. But before we close,
well, I was just going to say, can I add one thing to that? Because I had a conversation with a friend of mine, a Black woman that's a dear friend of mine. I've known her since like grade school. And we had a conversation. She said something to me that will forever stay imprinted in my mind, which was, the minute you say but, speaking to us as white people, the minute you say what but is the minute I know I can't trust you. Ooh. And when she said that to me, I was like, that is everything.
Wow.
That is powerful. Everything.
Yeah, but.
Just when you say but,
yeah,
that is the moment, the instant, the exact that says, I no longer can trust you.
Yeah, you're not listening. No. You're not listening to learn. You're listening to respond and defend. Mm-hmm. And, you know, one of the things, like I started reading White Fragility as well. And I know you mentioned you read that. As a final note, what was the most powerful aha for you out of that book?
Oh my God, I have literally gone through 2 highlighters because I highlighted the whole book. In fact, you can see it. I like my tabs. It's all the most.
Well, maybe you're first.
I would say the biggest aha is more of a general aha. Is that racism is not something we consciously choose. Racism is part of who we are because of the way our systems have been set up. The fact that I literally closed the book at one point and said, I have been a racist my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I had to own that and realize that the definition of racism is far deeper, more complex, and more about the system than about being a good or bad person. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do, and that averse racism is oftentimes more damaging than the blatant. And that is why I am activated on everything, is because it's the unconscious bias. It's the unconscious way we show up. It's because of us not knowing what we don't know. And it's the adverse racism.
Yeah,
that runs rampant through there is not a single white person alive that doesn't have a level of racism based on the way the systems have been built. For me, that is everything that book opens up. And then everything from there is like, whoa.
The defense that comes up that I'm not a racist is the prejudice. And your Uncle Jed with the, swastika tattoo and the skinhead and the Confederate flag and all of that. Like, no, we're not really talking about those people right now. Let them do them. And I actually appreciate them for being open and honest about who they really are and where they stand, so that I don't have to wonder.
Right, you can easily put a dividing line, right?
Yeah, cool, you do you, boo. There's nothing I can say or do that's going to change your mind. But it's the unconscious bias and the racism of the system. When I hear people say the system is broken, I'm like, no, it's not. The system was created this way. We've got to break the system.
Right.
We have to destroy the system and rebuild it. And so, oh, honey, this has been such a powerful conversation. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing just the powerful stand you're taking, the losing of, acquaintances, friends, clients, business, and really rebuilding your brand to show that you take a stand and to have your communities be made of people who stand with you and support you on that. And like my coach said to me a couple of weeks ago, when I was like, I'm really surprised at the level of racism that I'm starting to see. And she's like, are you really surprised? Or has your level of disappointment been raised? I'm like, okay, I love that line. I am going to use that. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. I love you, my friend.
Love you too. And thank you all for joining in. And I'm going to see, this is my first time using StreamYard, so I got to put my glasses on, see where I go next. The silliness of old people trying to do technology.
I know, but
I hope it worked. I know people are on. They're saying thank you for the conversation. And I appreciate everybody who's come on, and he'll catch the replay. Share your thoughts and your concerns and your challenges, and we are here to help. So thanks, Candy.
Thank you.
Bye.